Welcome everybody to this session, which is called All Your Data Made Available as the Base for AI, the New Normal in Your Enterprise. My name is Michael Eggloff and I'm the European Sales Leader for Data Ops within IBM. And within the next 20 minutes, I'll use a whiteboard approach to explain you how IBM has chosen its way to make the data which is required to progress the business in a proper way to the end users, to your data scientists, to work on new ideas and new concepts and to leverage more data than ever before. That said, let's start our story at the consumers at the line of business side. This is the driving force within your organization for any kind of change, even within an IT organization. Within your lines of business, within your end consumers, you have multiple different roles, multiple different people with different responsibilities. And it's not only the typical organizations like sales or marketing, but also HR. They have a need as well as any other organization to analyze more data. So although we have different roles and different people at different levels with different tasks and targets, they all have something in common. The first thing is they're all being asked to be innovative. Everybody is looking for new solutions, for new approaches to expand the business, to improve a business. And that can also, again, be applied to all the different lines of business. And this is also valid for all different industries. So no matter if you're in the energy, utility sector, in the banking, financial market sector, if you're a retailer, you're permanently being asked to come up with new ideas for upsell, cross-sell, understanding your clients, creating a new market strategy. So no matter in which organization, in which company, that is the number one driver to identify new ideas and approaches. Secondly, all of these people within the line of business are being asked to reduce cost. And reducing cost typically means that you have to streamline operations and processes to be more efficient, to not waste the valuable time of your employees for unnecessary work, especially when it comes to analysis. There we talk about the data preparation, which typically consumes 80% of the time when it comes to finding data, preparing data until it's really ready for use. Last but not least, all of them have to comply with regulatory requirements. Of course, the financial sector is the most hit one by the regulatory requirements. But when it comes to reporting to the states banks, to the European central banks, to any other organization, you have to provide evidence that the data that you have is being managed in a trustful way, that it's secure, that you can provide evidence who had access to what data at what time, who changed what, when, why, and how, who has access. All these requirements are valid when it comes to audit, and you have to have a system that automatically helps you to provide these kinds of reports instead of creating that manually. If we combine all these things together, what is evident is that on the business side, there is a clear need for a self-service and for AI. Well, especially the self-service is the key driver because the business lines don't want to call someone in IT and ask them to do them a favor and to create a report and do something and then wait for half a year and it's not fully what they expected. The people within the lines of business want to fail fast. They want to take action themselves. They have an idea, they want to take action on it, they want to see the result. They want to fine-tune it, they want to go in a revision, but they want to do it themselves because this is the fastest way other than relying on someone in a different organization. So this part on the right hand depicts the situation in any industry, in any organization, when we look at it from a business perspective. Now, still you have on the left hand an IT side where you have all the sources and the applications that are relevant for the analysis on the line of business side. And there you can find multiple different sources, like different databases from different vendors. You have standard applications, be they SAP or Siebel or others. You have an enormous amount of unstructured data, which typically is not really used to its full extent. You have file shares, you have call records, you have maybe video surveillance, you have documents, emails. That is typically the vast majority of your data. You have data that you're streaming in, and then of course you're looking into the relevant social data to understand relationships between your clients or your client and yourself. This data typically then is either on-prem or in some cases already on the cloud. And no matter if it's a private cloud or a public cloud, IBM's philosophy is that any business in the future will have what we call a hybrid cloud environment, which means you have everything. You have data on-prem, you have data in a private cloud, maybe you capture some data from a public cloud and store it there. No matter what, the data is distributed over multiple different platforms. And last but not least, many of you have already taken approaches in the concept of a data lake, where you already start to gather different data sets from different platforms and try to make it accessible, which in many cases failed because it was just a duplication of the source data. And still, if you have data in a data lake and this data is not governed appropriately, it is very difficult to find it within the data lake for the lines of business. So the key question for every organization now is, how can the organization on the right hand, which owns the business responsibility, which strives for innovation and cost reduction, how can they use the data which is on the left hand? How can that data be sorted, organized, made accessible? How can it be analyzed? How can you create a model? You need to have a simple way to make the data accessible to the right hand to provide the self-service. IBM has developed a methodology which we simply call the AI ladder. It starts with collect, that you need to collect the data from the different sources. Then you have to organize it. After you organize your data, you can analyze it, and then maybe at the end you're able to infuse your artificial intelligence and your models. So it's a four-step approach that companies and organizations have to take. There's no way that with one single step you can just introduce one thing and then have everything solved. That's why we split it into pieces, and every organization, in our view, has to go along these different steps to make the data more useful in the business side. Now, let's take a look at the collect part, for example. This is all about taking the source data. So it moves to the upper left. It's more an IT-related activity where you combine the different sources and move the data into your locations, like be it appliances, databases, whatsoever. Analyze and infuse, of course, then is more a line of business oriented capability. This is where you have your tooling for creating new algorithms, models, statistics, reports, and this is clearly something which needs to be driven by the line of business to fulfill their own wishes. What's left now is the organized part, and by definition, when there is an element that connects two other elements, it becomes the most important one. If you don't organize the data which you collected, then it is not useful for the people who want to analyze it. So organize is the key element of the AI ladder strategy. And the key question is, how much are you able to automate the activities to make the data known, trustful, and useful? For that, we implement the expression of data ops. And data ops is a concept which is well known from the DevOps already, where you have different data elements and different groups working closely together to accelerate the development of all the required approaches and algorithms. So let's take a look into that data and how it is reflected within IBM. The corner element is a knowledge catalog, and it's on purpose called a knowledge catalog and not just a data catalog, because a knowledge catalog spans much more capabilities. On the first hand, it is a metadata management tool and a data catalog. The metadata management tool is more technically oriented to create lineage of the data, whereas the data catalog is more line of business oriented and makes the data accessible. In that sense, most vendors on the market, our competition, is more oriented towards a data catalog, but they're missing the foundation of gathering the data, putting it together, organizing it, grouping it, and having the basic metadata principles. Also, the knowledge catalog from IBM allows you to go beyond the pure structured data. We're able to infuse metadata from unstructured data. We're able to add notebooks. We're able to add so much more, which is the reason that we simply call it a knowledge catalog. Everything that we're doing within this catalog is based on open metadata. IBM has a clear commitment towards an open strategy, and the open metadata integration is the core element when the design of our knowledge catalog. That means there is a ODPI project called Egeria, and it defines the standard of how to exchange metadata between different systems. And the intention is that when you implement a catalog, you can still maintain all the different repositories that you have already, because there are so many metadata repositories already in your BI environment, in your database environment, and we want to just to leverage that and not to replace it. And the Egeria project defines how metadata can be exchanged in a bidirectional way, whilst you still maintain the original sources, get everything into one place and make it accessible. Now, the catalog is certainly the core element, but we have to wrap a couple of other capabilities around it. The first capability or group of capabilities is what we call multi-cloud data movement and access. So that contains everything where you move data from A to B. And you create metadata as soon as you touch data and move it from A to B, be that through the ETL process, be that through data virtualization, which is then the virtual movement, or if you do it via replication. You create metadata in the sense of where did data come from, where did it go, how was it manipulated or changed, how was it transformed, who created that job, when was it run, what was the result, everything around that. All this metadata is being fed into the knowledge catalog. And it's important to say that despite the open strategy of IBM, of course, we understand that companies have environments already. So it's not that only the IBM tooling moves that metadata. You can have any kind of ETL tool, any kind of replication, no matter what kind of metadata you have, as long as it's in a readable format, you can import that metadata into the knowledge catalog, which makes us independent of any previous installation. Of course, the advantage within the IBM family is that we have a pre-integrated platform where the exchange of that kind of metadata is a simple thing without any kind of manual integration effort, which you would need to put in place when you have a scattered landscape. Now, despite the data movement, now we need to make sure that all the different sources that we haven't analyzed yet can be moved, the metadata can be moved into the catalog as well. For this, we offer automated data curation, which means that we can discover and classify data in an automized way. We can detect sensitive data, analyze the data quality, assign the business terms to it, and we can also do that for unstructured data, which is something which is clearly an advantage when it comes to the analysis of the unstructured data. So after we moved also the metadata from the databases and sources into the catalog, then we offer a rich set of what we call core governance services. The basic, of course, is to create a data lineage, but at the same time, we're offering the data lineage, a business lineage, what was called a glossary, where you can have all the mappings between technical assets and business expressions so that you map the terminology between IT and the line of business. We have added the complete workflow so that when you do things, you still stay within the tool and you can trigger different workflows like changing a description, changing a relationship, and that goes through an automatic approval process and everything around it. Of course, then we have 20 years in data quality management. So everything around data quality, like defining rules, policies, enforcing these policies, mapping them across an enterprise, is what is also added. And what we recently added is the reference data management, which is also part of our catalog system. So there's an enormous set of governance services around the metadata, which you then can use within the knowledge catalog framework. Last but not least, and this is the most important element, then looking at it from a business perspective, the self-service interaction piece, which means that the line of business users, they can search for data, they find the relevant data. And they can do that because we allow all the capabilities of what's called collaboration. So you can tag different assets, you can comment on them, you can annotate them, you can share it. We also provide basic or advanced data preparation so that the data is already cleansed when it comes to the data scientists who want to create their models. And we, of course, have artificial intelligence built into our whole tooling, which gives recommendations and insights into what we think would be an appropriate next action to be taken on the data. On top of that, of course, metadata management, master data management is an important element when it comes to data quality, to make sure that you identify the one single client, that you're able to identify the different single products that you might have in all the different variations of master data management. And this is all integrated in one platform, which within IBM is now the Data Ops platform, where you have all the different elements that we just talked about, and even one more, which is the so-called test data management, which is a mirror of the whole environment where you're able to mask data, redact data, and to run all the different tests that are required before moving into production with any of your systems. So the key question now is, what are the benefits that we're seeing from that integrated platform? Number one is clearly that an integrated platform allows you to focus on the real part of the work, which is managing the data and not spending time on integrating different tools, different platforms, do it with hand coding, which is difficult to maintain. An integrated system allows you that you capture metadata, bring it into the catalog, make it accessible in one go. And IBM has the broadest capability on the market when it comes to the catalog. It's like an end-to-end tool where you really have the whole governance responsibility plus the whole line of business demand, which is covered in the self-service interaction and the data preparation. Now, what we have seen when we look into benefits with regards to cost and time, typically, if you compare that to a manual fill of your business glossary, you can save like 85% of the time to create your glossary and to have this mapping between business and technical terms. In some of our tests, we have achieved the assignment of 200,000 technical assets to business terms within less than 5 minutes, which I think is an extraordinary number. One of our customers, a healthcare organization, just within 2 hours identified personal sensitive data in one of the databases which was not properly secured and protected. So that already paid off their investment within just the 2 hours, because the fine they would have needed to pay for that unsecured environment would have been tremendously higher than the investment into the tooling. Of course, we can help to reduce reporting. So when you change data structures, it typically takes weeks until that is reflected in the reports. We can get that down in one of our customers' environments from more than 3 weeks down to less than 2 minutes. You can run data quality from a manual approach where you just score 6% of your data within an hour up to 93% within 1 minute. So the data quality increases immensely, which also has an effect on the quality of the reports and the models at the end user side. And another example from one of our retail customers is that we were able to drive down the affinity analysis report, which customer has an affinity to which product at which time, and that profiling went down from 20 days down to just 1 day. So what is now the net message for you? IBM has a unique platform where we integrate all capabilities required around data ops, formerly known as unified governance. And the IBM Watson Knowledge Catalog integrates most of these capabilities within one tool. So everything within the red circle, like the automated data curation, the governance services, and also the self-service, everything is embedded within the IBM Watson Knowledge Catalog. And through this, it becomes the broadest catalog in the market. I can refer to a workshop that was recorded where you could see the Watson Knowledge Catalog in action. It was held by Michael Eggloff. And with this, I want to thank you for your attention. Enjoy the rest of the summit in that virtual approach and take care of yourself. Thanks very much and have a good day.